Welcome to Rick's Corner. Many of you train at a Gold's Gym, or you train at a 24-hour fitness, or you train at the gym of your choice, but across the country, as you know, there are many Gold's Gyms, but there was only one original, and there was a man. The man's name is Joe Gold. Not many of you know this because times moved on and Joe's not with us anymore, but he was an innovator. He was the pioneer of bodybuilding. He was a bodybuilder in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. He started out at the Mae West Review, traveling with her on stage as one of the 4 bodybuilders that was at her side at all times. He was a professional wrestler for a short period of time. But he was the mayor of Muscle Beach. He had friends upon friends upon friends in bodybuilding, and they all trained down in Santa Monica at Muscle Beach in the outdoor pit, which wasn't in Venice, was actually in Santa Monica near the Santa Monica Pier. There was a hamburger stand by the name of Honest John's. He was a big, robust man with a big, hairy chest and a handlebar mustache, was a wrestler. He was friends with Joe. A lot of guys were friends with Joe. All the greats, Steve Reeves, Dick Dubois, all of them. They trained at the beach in the outdoor pit. But weather wasn't always conducive, so Joe said, I'm going to build a gym for my buddies. And he owned a lot of property down in Venice and Santa Monica at the time. He bought when the time was right. And in 1965, he built a cinder block building that was the original Gold's Gym, and he called it Gold's Gym. Now, some of his friends trained there, had no money. He let them train for free. The going rate was $60 a year. That's unheard of today. But he was a very generous person. If you didn't have the money, don't worry about it. He'll catch you next time. He was that kind of guy. He didn't allow music in his gym. He hated it. He built all of his own equipment. In his garage, he had a workshop and a welding machine, and he built each piece by hand. It was impeccable, and it was just exact accuracy to work the muscle. His dumbbells had bell handles on them. I've never seen those since. They fit in the palm of your hand, and they were so comfortable to use that going up from 30 pounds to 50 to 60 pounds was no problem because they were a very comfortable dumbbell. But it was his invention. And that equipment lasted for years and years and years. Well, in 1965, as I said, he started the gym, and he had members there like Dave Draper, Frank Zane, myself, Arnold, all the greats, and we all trained at his gym. But across town, in the valley, down the hill, out here in Sherman Oaks, or actually North Hollywood, there was a man named Vince Gironda. And Vince had Vince's gym, which was the complete opposite of the theory of Gold's. Vince wasn't big on squats, he wasn't big on powerlifting, he had his own methods, and he had such greats as Larry Scott, Don Hallworth, Bill McCardle, and many others in the movie industry who came to train with him. Robert Blake was one of them. God, there were so many I can't even remember. And many of them have passed on, but there's still a few around. But there were 2 different methods of training, and we had the beach scene and we had the valley scene. We never really mixed them up. Sometimes we'd go down to Vince's and train, but it wasn't the same as Gold's. Well, Joe took a lot of pride in his gym, and it was one of a kind. And after a few years, he tired of it, and he decided, well, I'm going to sell the gym. I'm going to go back out to sea as a merchant marine, make some more money, and just live my life. He was a handball player on the beach. He had an easy life of running on the beach and just taking it every day as it came, like most of us did then, and just as I do now, which is really a great lifestyle. And he did go out to sea, and he sold the gym. He sold it to 2 guys who ran it for a couple of years. They put up that French Underground Railroad thing on the wall, the design that you've seen in so many pictures. They repainted everything to red, white, and blue, kind of like the American thing at the time. And they did okay with it, but Joe wasn't there, and it wasn't the same. We had good guys, and it was nice. They later sold it again to Ken Sprague, who took it, and he made a trademark out of it, started running contests, and turned it into something really big. At that time, Ken Waller was the manager, and he asked me, he said, look, Rick, we need a design for the gym. Can you draw something? And he and Arnold and I went out to Zookie's Deli, and I drew a little character on a napkin that became the world's largest logo, the Gold's Gym guy. I still have the original T-shirt. In fact, I have 4 of them with my signature on them, and they're a collector's item today. Gold's Gym in 2005 came out with a reissue of it as an original design, and they sold it for a couple of years on their website. The problem with that was they had other designs with the same logo that they didn't give me the rights to, so I was actually competing with myself against other shirts. But I still do have 4 of the originals. At that time, we experimented around. And we said, look, let's try something different. I said, what if we do a front and back design, the Gold's Gym in front, the bicep pose, and the Gold's Gym in back? So we made a dozen tank tops. I have 1 left. I think it's the only one in circulation. It was the front, and it was the back. This particular tank top is really an item worth some money because there's only 1 now. There were 12. The other 11, who knows where they went? Who knows if anybody even thought about them in that day? But it's an interesting thing because I never knew at the time that that logo was going to take off and become so worldwide and become a trademark and a brand, which I'm thrilled to death to have the honor of developing and designing. Well, Joe came back after he was a merchant marine. He said, you know, I want to open another gym. And because of his contract and the legal issues, he couldn't. He couldn't open a gym within 10 miles that said Gold's Gym or even use his name, Joe Gold. So he thought about it, and he was upset. He was pissed. He says, I got to do something, and he owned more property, so he built another cinder block building just across the street from my apartment on Main Street, and he called it World Gym. And he put all the same things in there he had in the original gym. He built all his own equipment. It was a good gym, but it didn't quite have the atmosphere of the original Gold's. He came to me, he said, Rick, I need a logo. What can you do for me? I said, well, what do you want? He says, I don't know. I want some sort of an animal. I'm not sure, a gorilla or something. And I came up with a design, and I came up with the World Gym Gorilla, as we see right here. It became one of the second largest logos in the world to sell. Who knew? Anyway, this is an original shirt. I think I have one more. This is about it. And to this day, it's still around, and they're still selling. And he branched out, and he moved his gym into an old Sizzler building over in Culver City, actually in the marina. And he started franchising, and he had gyms around the country. He had people running them and running them like a World Gym. But it wasn't run the same as Gold's, and Gold's franchise, and of course they became what they are today. After a while, Joe kind of like sold the franchise, got tired of doing it. He passed away a few years ago. Some of the members of the gym moved and went to Gold. Some of them just went by the wayside. They weren't there anymore. But backtracking for 1 minute, I wanted to add that he had built a gym after his World Gym. He built one out here in the valley by me, out in Pacoima. And it was a good gym. It was a lot closer for me than driving to the beach every day. It was like I'd go down there to train at 8 in the morning. It was 2 o'clock before I got home. But this is right down the street. It's a bigger cinder block building, had all its original equipment. It's a dynamite gym. After about a year, he got tired of making the trip, and he sold it to Steve Davis. And Steve Davis ran it for a couple of years, did a good job with it. It had good equipment. It didn't have any heating in the winter or icicles on the dumbbells. I actually caught pneumonia in there one year. But the training was good. And then Steve sold it. He sold the gym to some company up in Sunland, not far from here. They moved it up to a warehouse, and then after a year they disbanded, and it was gone. And the sad thing about that is all that nostalgic equipment that Joe made, they had no regard for. They didn't care who Joe Gold was. They didn't know that it was worth anything. They didn't know that he made it, and it was handmade by him. It had value. To this day, it has a lot of value, but no one knows what happened to it, and it's really sad. Gold's Gym Corporate looked for it. They found a few pieces that had been left behind. They put them in Gold's down in Venice just as a museum. I have Joe's original table saw. 30 years ago, he gave it to me. He wanted me to have it, and I still have it in the back of my house here. And I've used it to build things around my house, and I actually cut my finger off on it thanks to him. No, it's not his fault, but it did happen. So that's Joe. And for those people today who don't know who Joe Gold is, he's an icon. He was the man. He was the pioneer of bodybuilding. He was the man who knew how to build equipment. He had the finest gym ever. It was strictly hardcore bodybuilding, and there's none like that today. So when you walk into a Gold's Gym and you look around and you see the pictures and you see the name and you see what it is, think of Joe. He's the man that started it. And it's never going to be the same and never go back to what it was. So remember that for all of you that don't know, this is the man that you have to remember, Joe Gold. May you rest in peace. And thanks for watching Rick's Corner. We'll have more next time.